A good afternoon once again to everybody. We are continuing with our biodiversity training program today. And today we'll be discussing about telling the story, that's using data, ethics, and impacts in biodiversity investigations. How we can use that to build a powerful story for the public when we are sharing infos on our various media platforms so that they can follow. So we'll be having our speaker today was changed. So we'll be having one Indian climate journalist and media training. He goes by the name Rajit Sengupta. He will take us through how to use data in journalism and also the storytelling, how we take our data from biodiversity in telling stories when we are giving infos on our journalism platforms. So by the end of this session, we should be able to understand the use of data as a tool for storytelling, how to identify good data sources. We should also learn how to write using data and also introduction to data visualization. So about our trainer, he is a climate journalist and media trainer for over 15 years of experience in the field. He is currently the associate editor with Down to Earth magazine in New Delhi, where he leads the Climate Data Center. He's also the author of State of India's Environment in Figures, the only data-driven annual book on climate in India and Indians Atlas on Disasters. He's already with us on the page, so I'll be leaving the platform for him very soon so that he can take us through the topic for today. Mr. Rajit, if you are hearing me, please, the platform is yours now. You can take over, then we can start with our meeting.
Thanks a lot. Am I audible?
Yes, please, you are.
Okay, I'll just share my screen and I'll get started. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. One small request. I understand that the way I would be speaking would be slightly different from how you will be speaking. So if you don't understand what I'm saying, or I don't have the rights to share my screen, can you please check that? I'm not able to share my screen. So if when I'm speaking, if I'm too fast or if the way I'm pronouncing things does not make sense, please stop me there and then, and I'll be more than happy to repeat. We are waiting. While we're waiting for the technical glitch to be sorted out, can all of you on chat tell me how well versed are you with data and how much data do you use in your normal reporting? If you are using it extensively, you can just write yes. If you are very new to it or you don't do it, then you can write no. In the chat box, if you can just type it. If you're using a lot of data in your stories already, then you can type yes. Otherwise, no, while we wait for the technical glitch to be fixed.
Please, those
Yep.
on the platform, if you heard this question, kindly give him the answers. He is still waiting. As we wait for our engineer to get the screen sharing process done.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, at least in India, I work with a magazine called Down to Earth. So it's one of the very few physical print magazine that we still have in India. So we come out with the magazine every 15 days. It's a fortnightly magazine. And in the past few years, we have started using data very extensively. Our experience has been that data is a language which crosses borders. So if I were to tell you, one of the things that I do is I run a data center, and in that we do something called an extreme weather database, where we basically looking at the number of days in a year India is experiencing extreme weather events. So most of us in this group will not have any idea or background about India and how the weather is over there. But if I were to tell you that in Delhi, in India, almost every other day there is an extreme weather event. So that will give you an idea of what kind of situation it is, even though you don't know the place, you don't understand the place. Just by the use of numbers, you can actually visualize how good or bad the situation is. So our database says that out of the 366 days that were there last year, it was a leap year, so we had 366 days. We found that almost 83% of the days, some part of the country, India is a big country, but some part of the country experienced an extreme weather event. So that gives you an idea of what you can do with data, and specifically for journalists, specifically when we're talking about very difficult ideas and when we're trying to compare it or we're trying to talk to an international audience. Data is a very helpful tool. It's a very convenient tool to share my screen, and I'll take it up from there. Is my screen visible to all? Somebody can just say if it is visible.
Yes, it is available. We are seeing that, sir.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. So, as I've told you that I work with a magazine called Down to Earth in India. It's a magazine that has been in circulation since 1992. So it's a very old magazine in the it is published by a non-profit called Center for Science and Environment. So it's a non-profit which works on environment and biodiversity, and they are the ones who've been coming out with the magazine. So it is a very interesting mix, and what is interesting about it is that we have a lot of in-house experts, which is basically, I think, a very difficult task for most reporters. So we have a team on, let's say, air pollution, which works on how air pollution should be managed. So we have researchers working over there. Similarly, we have another for biodiversity. So experts who are working on field, we have access to them easily. So that is basically how it works. So I'll just continue from there. So what we will cover in the next 1 hour or so, or what we'll try to cover is, we'll try to understand very theoretically, there are 3 steps of uncovering a data-driven story. The first is to find the data. That's the most obvious thing. You need to have the numbers to be able to tell the story. The second we'll try to understand is once we have data, and that is a big problem these days because given the fact that we are all connected to the internet, we have access to a lot of information. But when we are actually telling story, we know that we don't have much space. So how do we analyze it and how do we get the story out of it and how do we understand what is more important and what is less important in perspective of the story that we're trying to say? Because all numbers are equally important unless and until you want to tell a story. Can I expect all of you to please put yourself on mute? Can I ask Bill Cooper? Thanks a lot. Bill, you're unmuted again. Thank you. So the next logical step is to be able to analyze it. So we look at the broad ideas or things that we look at when we're looking at numbers. And the final bit is obviously the visualization part of it. What do we do with the data? We try to create maps, charts, graphs, pies, tables. So we'll try to use an online tool called Datawrapper. We'll try to learn how to use Datawrapper to create interactive visualizations. So we will be following these 3 steps in the next 1 hour or so. So let's start with why data, or what is it that I like about data. So the first thing is that everything can be described through data. So something as basic as something about anything. So I don't understand how the context is or what kind of situation it is in your country. But if you were to tell me, like you're talking about, let's say, happiness index, and if you say the happiness index of country X is basically 98% out of 100% of the population is happy. So even though we don't know anything about that country, but we can have a visual idea out of it. As opposed to this, if I were to describe the same thing about that country, I would say it is a very happy country. Now, very happy might mean differently to Rajit. It might mean a different thing to you. It might mean a different thing to the third person that you're talking to. Very happy, extremely happy. So unlike that, the moment you bring numbers, it gives you a perspective, and everything can, in a way, be brought down to numbers as well. The other thing that is very important is that data or numbers do not have any meaning of their own intrinsically. The meaning is basically where journalists or humans come into play. So we are the ones who are giving meaning to the numbers. And this is very important because with the same set of data, we can give different spins to it. So it is very important to understand that the data is not the story. It is basically how we weave a story around it. That is basically what is important. And that is something very important. So data, the way we look at it in down to earth, is the fact that we use data as evidence. So rather than data being the story itself, we use it to strengthen the idea that we already know. And that is basically where journalism or journalists come to the fore. So if you are a biodiversity journalist, you would know the realities of what is happening in your area. So when you know the story, then you can find relevant data to support the story that you want to do. Doing it the other way around is very tricky, and it is very, very dangerous as well. So I can give you an example. I remember many years back during the pandemic, we would get a daily bulletin in terms of how many cases were registered in India. And after the peak was over and everything had gone back to normal, one day in the news bulletin, I saw in the bulletin that we would get from the ministry, I saw there was a sudden spike in the number of cases. I became very happy because I thought there's a story over there. And very interestingly, there was no buzz around it. So if there would have been a spike, then everybody in the media should have been talking about it. But I had a government source or a government data set which shows that there was a spike, but there was no conversations around it. So it felt a little funny. At the same time, it felt like a newsworthy piece as well because there's a spike out of the blue. Then I started doing investigation. I started calling up experts. I started calling up the ministry from where the data came. And it turned out that the person who would actually update the data set had gone on leave for a week. And he came back after a week and he basically sum totaled all the numbers and he pushed out the numbers at one go. So he updated the website after a break of 7 days. So that was one of the reasons why there was a sudden spike. So had I just gone on the basis of the number that was presented to me, I would have got the entire story completely wrong. And even worse, I would have created a panic amongst the readers of our magazine saying that COVID-19 pandemic is back. And many often than not, you would realize that the data tells you what is happening, but it does not tell you why. And that is basically where journalists like you and us, we all come together. We are not only are in the business of telling what is happening, we also tell the why. And that is basically what is important. So data can be used as evidence. And it is something that we have to be careful when we're dealing with data. So the first step was to get the data. And while I will not come in too much on the term in terms of the data sources that you should look at in Africa, because I'm also not very, very comfortable or very aware of it. But what I normally do whenever we are starting off doing a data-driven story is basically I do something called a flowchart. Flowchart is basically I have a story in my mind. So this is how a flowchart looks like. I take a piece of paper and I sit down with it. And there are three shapes that I use. These are the three shapes that I like using. So every story will have only one rectangle box. That is the central idea or the premise. So I use a pen and I write it down. What is the story that I'm trying to say? It can be something to the tune of biodiversity crimes are increasing in Africa. It can be to the tune of a lot of extinctions are happening in Africa. It can be to the tune of forests are going down in Africa or going up in Africa. So all of these are very related stories. And if you think about it, these stories will have very similar kind of numbers to use. So, but whatever is your story, you write it down in the rectangle box. Then keeping in mind the story that you want to say. Let's say we are going with the fact that biodiversity in general, or let's say forest cover in general in Africa is going down. So if that is the story that we're trying to say, then these rhombuses that we have, these rhombuses or star shapes that we have over here, we write what are the data sets that we want to choose. So depending on how much time I have to research, I can have multiple rhombuses. So if I'm doing a story for which I have 1 month's time and I will be traveling and I'll be talking to a lot of people, the number of rhombuses will go up substantially because I'll be looking at a lot of other data sets as well, which I otherwise would not explore. If I had to file a story in an hour's time, which is more often than not is the case with us in news rooms. So if I have, let's say, 2 hours to file a story on this, my editor has just asked me to do a story on how forest cover in Africa, in most countries in Africa, is going down. Then what I'll do is my first rhombus would be I need evidence. So I would look at what was the forest cover in African countries cumulatively, let's say 20 years back, and how much is it right now. So that's the most obvious data set I would need if I'm telling a story that the forest cover is going down. So I will spend a lot of time looking at that number. I will try to verify that number because that is the most important data set that I have in the story. There can be other related data sets as well. Let's say one of the reasons might be because there is an increase in forest fires because of climate change, because it is warming up. So maybe that's the reason why there is a lot of forest fire, and that is the reason why there is a lot of, because of the forest fire, the forests are going down. So another rhombus could possibly be, let's say, forest fire data. How many forest fires are being reported and how much was being reported earlier, whether there's an increase or a decrease. And we can look at other reasons as well. So depending on what numbers you need, the beauty of this is that we have not checked the numbers online. We are just sitting and we are just thinking about what are the numbers that best suit my story. And once you've identified that, then I would go online. So basically the circle that you see at the bottom, this is basically where I write the sources where I can get the numbers from. My best source or my most favorite source is if I know somebody in the concerned department, if there's a human being who can give me access to that data, I will call up that source of mine and I'll ask that person to help me out with the numbers, because that's the most credible way of going about, and that's also the most I'm 100% sure about the numbers because I can ask questions and everything else along with it. Other than that, there are websites, there are government websites, there are other agencies, there are others. Something as basic as, let's say, tomorrow, if you have to do a story on India, and your best bet might actually be to call me up first or reach out to me first, because I understand the realities over here. And then you can obviously build up the story along with that as well. So that is basically how this works. So depending on how much time you have and how big a story you're looking for, you can have multiple rhombuses or you can have one single rhombus. So this is a step that I follow to, so that I don't spend too much time looking at the data set online, because what happens is that when you go online, then you'll like find 100 different sources giving 100 different kinds of numbers for the same thing. And you will end up wasting time. You might end up starting, so there might be a data source which says, okay, I don't have data for Africa, but I have data for, let's say, 10 African countries individually. But I know my story is about the entire continent of Africa and not for a specific country. So I would not waste my time looking at those smaller pieces of information, which I otherwise would if I have not gone through the flowchart process. Does it make sense what I'm saying right now? If you have any questions, you can just type it out. Okay, perfect. I'm assuming if you have any problems or if you don't understand what I'm saying, you can cut me short and I'll be more than happy to repeat myself, because I understand that we talk differently than what you would be doing locally in Africa. So this is the first step that we normally always do. This is an example of how it looks. So we did this last year in Nairobi. We had a session. So in that, we created this poor water management as a possible contributor of Nairobi's water crisis. This was a story that we were trying to work out with fellow journalists. And these were the different rhombuses that we came up with. Water supply leakages is very high, supposedly, in the city, and some other issues that we came up with, and what are the places that we can possibly go to. So this is how I do, and depending on how much time I can have, maybe for a story, I will have multiple flowcharts. I will ask my editor, I will ask my friends, I will ask the experts that I have easy access to fine tune all of these data sources before I actually go online or I reach out to other people to get the actual data. Because we are not data experts, we are not data analysts. We are journalists. We are very good at understanding what the story is because we've been covering our beat for a very long time. So I want to see as little data as possible, and I need to know what is the story I will have to tell with all the data that I'm going through. So by reversing the process, normally what we will do is we will go online and we'll start reading up and we'll start looking at different data sets. Here, what we're doing is we are thinking why we need the data. So we beforehand know what is it, the paragraph or what is the sentence that I'm going to write when I'm looking at that data. Let's move on to the second part of data analysis. So broadly, this is a very broad breakup or categorization that I've come up with. So there are three kinds of data stories. There are outlier stories or outliner stories. There are trend stories and there are correlation stories. Correlation, there are several kinds of correlations as well. So these are the three broad structures that you can have when you're dealing a data story. An outlier story is basically a value that is very different from others. So rankings is a classic example of an outlier story. Which city has the highest air pollution levels? If you have such questions, you are looking at an outlier story, where you're basically talking about something that is standing out from the crowd. Why farmers from a specific area more susceptible to suicides or mortgages? This is a story that we have done in India. So there is a specific state in India where we have surprisingly high farmer suicides. So we did the story a couple of years back, and we realized that was because a few years before that, Government of India had introduced a special kind of cotton farming over there, genetically modified cotton seed that was introduced over there, which had higher productivity. So when it was sold to the farmers, farmers were very happy because it was sold as if this is a perfect solution to all farming problems, because you get higher productivity, you will get more money. But what happened was, in a couple of years after they started farming with the GM crop for cotton, because of the higher productivity, it was also more susceptible to pest attacks. So there were higher damages as well, because pests and ants and whatever and all the other insect attacks were much higher because it was higher in terms of productivity. So they had more losses, and they were actually pushed into taking loans. So that was the story that we came up with. It is an outlier story, and it is basically a story where you have a good example to begin with, because seeds, they would have thought it would help the farmers. The farmers genuinely believe that it would help the farmers. That is the reason why they made the switch. But in a few years, we realized that it actually did not work out. So that is a classic example of an outlier story. Rankings is another example. Trend stories is another thing, where you're basically looking at something that has happened over a period of time. So trend is, what is important in trend is the fact that you need to have a time frame. So something as basic as, like, has the dependency of groundwater increased over the past 10 years in a year in a city, or has the number of water conflicts increased in a region or globally over the past some time? So in the first, we were not talking about a time period, we were talking about what is happening now, and a region which stands out, or an area that stands out in terms of good or bad. Over here, it is basically what has happened in a city or in a town or in a country or in a region over a period of time. Like Delhi has a chronic problem of air pollution. So trend story would be basically, how bad is it now and how was it earlier? And then you can basically build up the story from there, looking at what are the reasons. So that is basically how a trend story looks like. And then there are correlation stories, and this is the most commonly available story, that one thing is leading to the others. So an example of that would be, more smoking causes more cancer, or something as basic as people buy more umbrellas when it is raining. So one external thing is causing the other one. So there are different kinds of correlation. One is what we just talked about, X leads to Y or Y leads to X. Basically, that one thing is leading the other. If you smoke, there is a higher chance that you will have cancer. If it is raining outside, there's a higher chance you would take an umbrella than when it is not raining. There's another thing that is basically two things are happening. That is basically Z is leading to X and Y. An example of that would be, I don't know, an example of that could be, so we'll look at the example. So basically what we're saying is that two things is happening. So basically, let's say the number of cancer cases is also going up. And at the same time, let's say the number of obesity patients is also going up in a city. And why are the two going up? They are not leading to one another, right? The number of diabetes or obesity or some other patients, and at the same time, the number of cancer patients are going up. The reason might be the diet that we have. So that is an external reason why it is causing a lot of obesity, and it is also causing a lot of cancer. So that is basically an example of that. Z, or an external factor, is causing these two things, and both of them are going up or going down or whatever. And lastly, and this is most important, that correlation doesn't always mean causation. That basically means that just because two things are going up or going down at the same time, or not going up or going down, are going inversely proportional, opposite to each other, does not always means that there is a story. And this is basically where journalism comes handy, or your experience comes handy. So anything, any two things can by random go up and go down at the same time. So we have to be very careful about that as well. So let's try doing a small exercise over here. If you can type in the answers in the chat box, that will be wonderful. So the assumption is that we have only this piece of data. I'll tell you what the data is. This is a graph which shows that on the left-hand side over here, we have the homicide rates, or the number of killings due to the use of guns per 100,000 people. So we're talking about a country, different countries in the world. And at the bottom, we have how many people in that country have access to guns. So guns per 100 people is basically what we have at the bottom. And what we are actually seeing is the fact that if you have higher guns, or higher easy access to guns in a way, then there is also a higher incidence of killings through the use of guns. So what I want you to do is, or in fact, let me do this one and then we can pick up from the next ones. So what I want you to do is that if this was the only data set that you had, what would be the story that you need, that you would be filing? Where we're showing that United States has the highest rate of gun use, and also has the highest access to gun in amongst the population as well. That is the reason why the United States is over here. If anybody wants to give it a shot, if you had to do a story only on the basis of this graph, what would that story be like, or what would be the headline for that story? You can try to attempt it. Otherwise, I'll go ahead. If you want, you can also unmute and speak as well if you have difficulties typing. Okay, I'll continue. So the story that I had in mind is basically this: X leads to Y, which basically says that if you have a gun, if there is easy access to gun, you are likely to use it. And that is the reason why there are a lot of killings happening because of guns. This is something that we know about US, and there are a lot of stories around it as well, that gun control is a big issue over there. So one of the stories that I can say just on the basis of this data is that if you have a gun, you are more likely to use it. Any other stories that you possibly think you can come out with the same data set, if you wanted to give it a shot? Otherwise, yep, high proliferation of guns is a major cause of homicide. Perfect, Ibrahim. That's broadly what I have also said. That is one of the stories that you can come up with it. The other story that you can come up with the same data set is basically you're twisting it the other way around. I'll say that if you live in a dangerous country or a locality or a region, then there is a higher chance that you are going to have a gun. So basically the same story, or the same data set, not the same story, the same data set can be used to tell another story as well. What I'm saying over here is basically, if I live in a dangerous country, then there is a very high chance that I will also procure a gun for my own safety, for the safety of my family. So you can have the same data telling two different stories. And this is basically where your experience as a journalist comes handy, because you will obviously ask experts, talk to people, go out and find. So data is giving me two stories over here. One is that if I have access to guns, there is a very high chance that there'll be a high incidence of homicide. It can also be the opposite or the reverse. If I live in a locality where there is high homicide rate, it is an unsafe locality or it's an unsafe country, then there is a very high chance that I'll have access to guns. And you can tell both the stories from the same data set. So one is X is leading to Y, and the other is Y is leading to X. Let's look at this one. This is my personal favorite, and this is not a made-up data set. There's actually a research on this. It says on the left-hand side is basically the number of Nobel laureates that these countries have generated or produced per 10 million population. So out of every 10 million people, how many people are Nobel laureates in these countries? And at the bottom is basically the chocolate consumption of that country per capita per year. That basically means how much chocolate do an average person in that country consume. And if you look at it, countries which have high intake of chocolate, like Switzerland, people eat a lot of chocolates over there on an average, and they have also generated a lot of Nobel laureates as well, the highest in terms of the population capita. So if you had this data, what is the story that you would possibly come up with? Or what is the story that you can possibly come up with? I'll wait for 2 minutes if you have any ideas. What we have over here is countries that have high consumption of chocolate. Over here, the graph shows that countries that have high consumption of chocolates also produce more Nobel laureates in terms of per capita or per population. If I had to do a story just on the basis of this, what could possibly be the story headline? We'll wait for a minute or two and then we'll move. You can just think about it. So sorry. Yeah. Yep, I can see somebody is unmuted. Is it by accident or is there something that you have to say? Okay. Any ideas? Any ideas? Anything that you think? Any story? It can be. The good thing about journalism in general is that, or is the fact that there are no right answers over here. So any idea that you possibly think you can write, if this was the only data set that you had, what story would you make out of it? Okay. Let me try and give you my answers. If you have any additional answers, you can also pitch in. One story is something that if I am a chocolate manufacturer, I will definitely say. I'll say that chocolates make you smarter. So if you eat a lot of chocolates, you're bound to become smarter. And because you are smarter, there's a higher chance that you'll get a Nobel Prize. That is an obvious story that you can find, that chocolates make you smarter. The reverse of that is also equally true, but it is not that true because you don't have so many Nobel laureates. But if you are smart and happy, you are likely to have a lot of chocolates. The reverse is equally possible. Might sound a little outlandish, but it is also possible. Any other ideas that you think you can come out with the data from this data set? One is obviously this. So if I am a chocolate manufacturer, I love this. If I'm able to prove that chocolates make you smarter, I'm confident that I can advertise it in a much better way. A third reason could be, and this is most likely, and that is basically what the report, this is a study paper. They said that chocolate is an expensive commodity. So is good education. So they said that the countries at the top are the rich countries that are traditionally rich countries because they can afford good chocolate, which is expensive, or a lot of chocolate, which is also an expensive commodity, and good education as well. So you can see that an external reason is causing this. So it's basically the incomes of the countries, whether they're rich or poor, that decides what kind of Nobel laureates how many Nobel laureates you actually generate. So this is basically how, depending on the data set, you can actually come up with different data ideas. Yeah, Bushra, that's a wonderful idea. Bushra has written that study shows chocolate aids intelligence and health education. So that is, if I work for a chocolate company, I will love this idea and I will definitely talk about it. But a more likely reason is because all of these countries are rich countries. So they can afford too expensive things. So it's an external thing that is causing both of them. So they can afford, more people in that country can afford good education or expensive education. And at the same time, they can also buy a lot of chocolates and eat a lot of chocolates, which is also expensive in a way. So here's another example. This is the last one, I promise. So this is some country. And in this country, there are two bars that you can see, and both of them are going up year on year. The pink line that you see is basically talking about the consumption of cheese in that country. How much cheese does an individual or an average person in that country consume? So if you can see from 2000 till 2009, the consumption of cheese is going up. So in that country, people on average are consuming much more cheese. And the orange line that you see, the other line that goes along with it, is basically the number of vegetarian people in that country. how many people in that country do not have non-vegetarian, do not eat meat. They only eat vegetables for living, to survive. So if you look at it, both the cheese consumption is going up, so is the number of vegetarian people in that country, whichever country this is. So if this was the only piece of information that you had, what would be your headline to do a story around it? We are seeing that the number of people who do not eat meat is going up in this country. And at the same time, the amount of cheese people are consuming in that country is also going up. We'll wait for a minute or two. If you have any ideas. Yeah, Hadisa, that is an interesting way of going about how countries with higher chocolate consumption get richer. That is actually true. So any ideas about what possibly can be there? We'll wait for a minute or two. What we have in the data is basically the number of people who do not eat meat is going up in the country, and also in the same country, the amount of cheese that an average person in that country eats is also going up. So people are eating more cheese, and also more number of people are not eating cheese, not eating meat. What is the story that you can possibly come up with? Any ideas, anything that you want to say? Perfect, Bushra. Bushra is written, vegetarians heave sigh of relief as cheese comes handy. That's a wonderful way of going about. Yep. Any other ideas? Any other thing? So what you also have to appreciate is the fact that we are looking at data sets for which we have no context or no idea. In real life, when you're actually doing stories, this will never be the case. So because of that, we can spin it in any way we feel like, because we don't know which country we are talking about or which region we are talking about. We don't even know what is the reality of that place. So over here, we can think whatever way we want to. When I had looked at it, I eat a lot of meat and I like eating meat. So when I had looked at this data set, and I also like cheese, it isn't that I don't like cheese. I had said that there is no correlation between the two. I had said that this is bogus. Both of them are going up, but there is no correlation between the two. Something to the tune of the number of road accidents that are happening outside in the country, and the number of cheeseburgers that are sold in the country. If both of them are going up, most likely you'll say this is just two random numbers that are going up. Doesn't mean that there is anything to it. Kamal has written, cheese proves a better alternative for vegetarian. That is definitely another story that you can come up with. In my head, because of the bias that I have, because I eat meat, and at the same time, I also like cheese a lot as well. So in my head, the story was that there is no story over here. I said I would not do a story on this. There is no correlation. It's just random. Randomly, two things are going up. So that's exactly how you look at it, or what you look at it when you're looking at data. So, or at least this is things that I look at when I'm looking at data. Now we'll jump to a tool. So once we have the raw data, then we have looked at the data and we have found a story around it by looking at the different trends that we looked at over here, whatever correlations that we come up with or whatever other things that we come up with. Then finally, we have to visualize it. And ideally, in an ideal world, we will have a designer who will visualize it for us. But more often than not, at least in newsrooms in India, which is constantly shrinking, it is always a better idea to be able to know this as well, because you can impress your boss and you can save on a lot of time. So there's a tool called Datawrapper. It's a completely online tool, and it's one of the easiest tool and one of the most powerful tools that I have used for creating visualizations for my stories. So this is how it looks. So far, whatever we've covered, is there any questions, queries, anything that you are struggling with or you think needs to be repeated? You can just speak up. Otherwise, we'll move on to Datawrapper. Okay, I'm assuming that everything is good. So I'll move on to Datawrapper. So earlier in the WhatsApp group, there was an Excel sheet which was shared. We will use this Excel sheet to create different kinds of visualizations. I'll quickly show you what the Excel sheet is all about. This is an Excel sheet which talks about the carbon dioxide emissions of different African countries. So there are 52, I think, African countries that are there right now over here. No, there are not 52. There are like 34 of the countries in Africa. 34 African countries, and what kind of carbon dioxide emissions happened in 2022. So if I had to create a visualization around it, what I'll do is I will go to a website called Datawrapper. This is basically the web link for Datawrapper, datawrapper.de. I'll just put it in the chat box. 1 second. I'll just do that. One second. I'm not able to find it. Can somebody just, I think that panel at the bottom is right. Yeah, I'm sorry, I found it. So this is the web link, datawrapper.de. I put it in the chat. You can just click on it. If you are using a computer right now, if you're not connected through your mobile phone, then you can try doing it along with me. Otherwise, you can do it later as well. You can just see what the process is, and you can try doing it as well later. So it's a better idea to create your email account in this. This is completely free to use. There is also a paid version as well. The paid version you only need if you do not want to use the Datawrapper logo. We'll talk about it, but we will be using only the free version. So in Datawrapper, there are 3 things that it does. It can create charts that you can see over here. It can create maps that you can see over here, and it can create tables. And these tables are the prettiest and the best looking tables that I've seen in a very, very long time. So you can create all these 3, and they can be done in minutes. That's the beauty of Datawrapper. So let's say we want to create a table of the 32 countries. So what I'll do is I'll come to product and I'll click on tables. And because this is completely online, so you don't need to install anything onto your computer. So that is another advantage that you have when you're using Datawrapper. So I've selected on tables, and it asks me, do you want to build your own table? I say yes. So when I click on this, it takes me to this place. And this is basically the panel that you will see. Does not matter what you're creating. There are 4 steps involved. First is that you have to tell what the data is, upload the data. Second is you have to check if the data is correctly uploaded or not. If there are any problems, it will tell you. The third is you have to fine tune the data set. So right now we are creating a table. So it will ask me questions like, what is the color that you want to use in the background? Do you want to change the color of the fonts? Do you want to do something else? So I basically do the fine tuning, or I make my table prettier over here in step 3. And then in step 4, I just publish it. When I publish it, I get a URL, a web link that I can put on my website. I can put on social media. I can put anywhere else I feel like, and it can be used. So I can put it on my website and it can be used. So the first is we have to upload the data. So what I'll do is I'll just go to this link. I'll just use Shift and an arrow key to select. I'll just select I can take the entire thing for the time. And I just Shift and Control. So I've selected all the 5 columns at the top. Then I'm clicking on Shift, and then I'm adding Control and then the down arrow key. So all the values that are there in this spreadsheet will get selected. Then if you're using Windows, it will be Control C. I'm using a Mac, so I'll do Command C. So if you're using a Mac, it is Command C. These are the shortcuts. You can also use a mouse or Control C. So when I do Command C, you can see that there is a boundary that has come up, a border that has come up. That basically means selected. So I come back over here. In this white space, I just click and I do Control V or Command V, depending on what you're using. If you're using a Windows, it will be Control V. If you're using a Mac, it will be Command V. So I've just pasted the entire data set over here. That's it. That's the first step. I've just copied it and pasted it. So once you're done with that, at the bottom, you can see there is an option of proceed. I just click on proceed. So I've just copy pasted it, and now we move to the second step. The first step is done. The second step is check and describe. So Datawrapper has tried to create a table, and it is showing me how the table looks. This is how it is, and this is exactly how we want it. Let's say I don't want to use this country code. So I can just click on this, and I can just come on the left, and I can, I went back, and I can just hide it from this visualization. So even though I've uploaded it, it will not be visible. At the same time, I don't want the last two columns as well. So I just selected them, and I'm just hiding it over there. Hide selected columns. So now what will happen is they will not be visible in the final visualization. So now I'm left with just two columns, the name of the country and the carbon dioxide emissions that have happened in 2022. So once we're done with that, then I click on proceed. And the moment I click on proceed, if you see, the table is created already. So the entire table is created. And what I like about the table, so basically what you see on the right-hand side, this is basically how your end user will see. This is the final product. And on the left-hand side, you have the options to tinker in terms of making it pretty and making it more visually better. So what I like about Datawrapper is that you have an option to make it searchable. So when you click on make searchable, you also can decide how many rows or how many countries will be displayed on the first page. Right now, by default, there are 20 countries. If I want, because I know my users use mobile phone the most, so I might want it to be, let's say, 10. So the moment I do 10, there are only 10 countries displayed in one page. And on the right-hand side, you have pages 1 to 4, because we had around 32 or 34 countries, or 33, 34 countries. So it is spread across different pages. So my end user can actually click on these pages, and they can look at it. So depending on how many number of countries you want to be displayed, it goes to the next page. And this is something that I really like. And they can also obviously sort and do this. So now it is alphabetically sorted. Now it is in terms of value sorted. So South Africa has the highest carbon dioxide emissions within the African countries that we have right now. Egypt is second, and then Algeria is third. So your end user can do all of this. They can search, they can sort, they can do all of these things on your website if you've published it on your website. Once you're done with that, you can do some other things. You can individually work with the columns. So like country name, you can select and you can make it bold to make it stand out. You can do some other things. You can make it a different color if you want, and some other set of things. You can give it a border and everything else to go along with it. You can also have a background color if you want. I can have a mild background color as well. So basically, this makes it look slightly better. It makes it stand out a little better. So you can do all of these transformations as well. So I'm assuming that this is basically what I want to do. And there's another thing that we should also do. So if you have a column which has numbers in it, so over here we have this column which has numbers in it, you can create a bar inside this as well. So how do we do that? You come to the total, and then over here, you have the option to create a bar chart. So now if you see, there is a bar chart that has been created along with the table. So you see how pretty it looks. And what we have done is just clicked on options. We have done nothing but just clicked on options. So that is the beauty of this. So once you're done with that, you go to the bottom, and you have the bottom option to click on proceed. Now you've come to the annotate option. And over here, you give a headline. So let's say the headline that you want to give is GHG emissions of African countries. And this, then you have the option to write an intro. The intro could be something between, let's say, the data. Obviously, these are not very good headline and intros, but I'm just showing you what you can do with this. The data is for 2022 and sourced from IEA. Whatever. So you can see what is happening over here. You've got a headline and you've got a sentence at the bottom as well. And then you have got data source. The data source can be whatever. So we've written it. It is IEA. So the moment you write the data source, you can see at the bottom, the source IEA comes up. So let's say this is also good to go and I have nothing else to add over here. So what I can do then next is I can click on proceed. And now there are 2-3 things that you can also do. You have, if you see at the bottom by default, there is an option of get the data. If you have this enabled, what it means is that your end user will be able to download the raw data that has been used to create the visual. So they will be able to download this raw data. If you want them to be able to download, keep it enabled. If you don't want them to be able to download it, then you just click on data download over here. So the moment you click on this, this goes a bit disabled and you don't have that option. Your end user doesn't have the option anymore. So I'll just keep it on so that we can see what happens. You can also have the option to allow them to download the image as well. So obviously this is a table, so doesn't make sense. But if this was a bar graph or something else that you've created, then they can also download the image of that graph as well. And they can put it, your end user can use it and put it on their social media platforms and anything. You also have the option to share button. Share button, when you click on it, if you see there are these 3 social media handles that are there: Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, or X right now. So these are the only 3 social media platforms that are supported by Datawrapper by default. What will happen is if your end user or your customers, they click on this, it will get posted on their social media handles. So if I were to click on this will take me to my Facebook page and I'll be able to publish it over there. Similar is the case with my LinkedIn and X as well. So if you want, you can keep it enabled. If you don't want, you can also disable it. I'll keep it enabled so that we can see what happens. Once we're done with that, you click on proceed. And now if you look at it, we started from upload data. And now we are at the last leg, which is basically publish and embed. So we started with upload data, then we checked and verified the data set. Then we clicked on visualize, and then now we are in the publish and embed data. So if everything looks fine, there are 2 things that you can do. One is that you can download an image of it by clicking on export PNG and it will get downloaded. So if you are making a magazine and you don't want to publish it on the website, then you can create the visual or a report that you're working on or any book that you're working on. You can create the visual over here and you can just download the visual over here and you can put it on the report that you're working on the magazine that you're working on. Alternatively, you can also publish it online. So when you click on publish, what it does is it publishes it on Datawrapper's website and it gives you a visualization code. And this is the URL code. This is a unique code that will be there forever. So I'll just click on this code and you can see what happened. I'll also put this code in the chat box as well. So if you want, you can try opening it, and it is customized or it is ideally optimized for both the for both laptops, computers, and mobile phones as well. So if you open it on mobile phone, it will look slightly different. If you open it on a screen on a laptop, this will look like this. So if you look at it in less than a few minutes, obviously we explained, but otherwise in less than a few minutes, you can create an interactive table, a searchable, sortable table in Datawrapper. And does not matter how many values you have. You can have hundreds and thousands of values and it will work absolutely fine. Any questions? Otherwise, I'll move on. Okay. The other thing that you can do, and this is something that I personally love about Datawrapper, is the fact that you can also create maps and interactive maps similar to the tables that we created. So let's try to use the same data set to create a map. So in Datawrapper, what I just did was I clicked on create new and I clicked on maps. So if you remember, there are 3 things that you can do. You can make a chart. Basically, there are 20 different kinds of charts that you can do. Then we have maps, and then we have a table option. So we looked at the table option. Now we can try creating a map. So there are 3 kinds of maps that you can create in Datawrapper. You can make a choropleth map, which is basically color-filled maps. Then you've got symbol maps. These are basically the bubbles. It can be any other shape as well. It can be triangles. It can be anything else as well. So these are basically icon-based maps. Depending on how good or bad it is, you can have different values and different size changes. And you can have a locator map as well. So let's try doing it working with the choropleth map right now. You can explore the others at your own convenience whenever you want to start using it. So when you click on choropleth map, unlike all the other interactive websites that I've been to, Datawrapper has a set of maps that are inbuilt in it. So if you have the map that you're looking for, if it has the map that you're looking for, then you can work on it. Otherwise, it won't work. So right now we are looking for a, so if you on the right hand side, you can see the maps, the map that is visible, and it has thousands and thousands of map that is inbuilt. So I just have to look for the map that I want to work with. So if I type Africa, so it shows, and this is the map it has. So this has a map of Africa. These are African countries. If you want to check out any individual country, so I don't know, let me try Ghana. So if you type Ghana, so you can see the list of options that you have for Ghana. Ghana, I'm assuming this is some place within Ghana, and the districts that are there within. Then when you click over here at the column, at the bottom, at the top on the left hand side, so everything is selected, and I'm just doing Command V or Control V, you can do that. And if you look at it, everything is pasted. And if you look at it, the map is almost ready. So I have created a map without knowing anything about map making. So I've just copy pasted it, and this is basically how the map looks. Then you click on proceed because I've uploaded it, and it tells me that all the countries that I've uploaded, they look fine. If there are any errors, so errors would be to the tune of the spellings that are there. So there would be times where you would not be able to match the spellings, and that is basically where the problem is. So right now it has picked it up with the ISO code, and it has matched it with the ISO code, which is a unique code. So it has picked up ISO codes for all these African countries, and it has been able to match them. Then I click on proceed. It is telling me that it doesn't have data for 21 countries that are there in the map. And these are basically the ones that are gray right now. So it is saying that you have not given me any data for all of these countries, the countries that are there on the at the bottom. I don't know the ISO codes for them, but these are the Kenya is obviously not there, KE and Kenya. So 21 countries, we don't have data. I'm okay with it because I really don't have the data. And then you just click on proceed. And once you click on proceed, you can see that the map is ready on your right hand side, and it is searchable, and it is not searchable, it is interactive. So you hover the mouse or you hover the mouse and it works fine. And I can then make some other changes, country name. I'm so sorry. Right now it is showing it by the ISO codes because the map has been created on the basis of ISO codes. I'm not too sure. Let me just see. Okay. We'll figure it out on the fly. So the problem that I'm facing is right now when I hover the mouse, it just shows me the ISO code and not the country name. I would ideally want the country name to come. We'll just figure it out how to go about with that as well. Anyways, so then you can choose the color palette that you want to work with. So if you want, you can use some other color palette as well. You can also customize the color palette if you want. So you can choose any other color that you want to work with. So let's say I want to make it a shade of green for some reason. So I can also do that. So I'm basically removing the extra gradations. And I'm just keeping 3 gradations because it's easier. And once I'm done with that, I'm just dragging it outside. So we've got just 3 variations, gradations. So red, actually, I should make it red anyways. Or I can do it black. So black or greenish black is the worst. Then black with a, this is the other one. Okay, there's a problem with this. Let me go with red because I have red, orange, and yellow. Let's say yellow. So this is basically what the color palette I picked up. And then some other things are over here. Once we're done with that, you can go through it in terms of how the way it looks and everything else. You can check it up over here. And then you click on proceed. As you also have the option to make it zoomable. That basically means that your end user will be able to zoom into the map. In a world map, it makes sense. In over here, because it's big, it doesn't really make sense. And zoom option is bad for mobile phones normally. It becomes very clumsy on mobile phones. So I normally don't enable it, but if you want, you can do that as well. So it becomes zoomable. Then we can do the same thing. Headline goes here. I'm not too much time. Headline. And intro. So you've done that, and you can do some other things over here. And then once you're done with that, 1 second, still figure out. Anyways, what I'm struggling with is the fact that I am not able to find the names of the countries are not coming. That is a problem that I'm facing because we have used ISO codes for it. I'll have to figure it out how to fix this. I think I'll be able to fix it if I use this. Or if I were to disable this. Anyways, I'll just let it be right now because we don't have time. If I would have just taken the country name, that would not have been a problem. There would be other ways as well. I'm not able to find it right away. So once we're done with that, I'll move on and we come to the proceed, and towards the end, list. And we do the same thing. We click on proceed and we click on publish and the link is ready. So the same thing you see over here. You can click and you can paste it. And this is an interactive map that we've created in less than a few minutes. So let it open up and you can embed it onto your own website and everything else as well. So you can see that the map is ready and it is a very good looking map if you think about it. And it takes less than a few minutes or less than 10 minutes to create it as well. I'll just stop over here. If you have any questions, queries, you can ask me. Otherwise, we can end the session over here. Over to the hosts now. If there are any questions, we can take it. Otherwise, we'll just stop over here. Zainab, you've written that please take me through the process again. Can you tell me what exactly you asked for? Because I had not seen it at the point in time. Any other questions, queries? I think everything is, if everybody has got a hang of it. Anything else that you want to ask? Anything else that you want me to talk about? Otherwise, we can conclude for the day. Yeah. Can you take me through the process of again to chart? I'll just show that. I'll just quickly show that. I'll just show that. So if we were to create, let's say, a bar chart from the same thing, I'll just jump back. So you can just go over here and identify and make a chart. The process remains basically the same. You just copy paste the table. Let's do that. I'll just do it quickly this time around. So we've copy pasted the table and I'm trying to create a bar chart this time. You have just looked at the numbers, they look fine. And then in the visualize, so there are 20 different kinds of bar charts that we can create. So we'll go with this. This looks fine to me. You can either go with this, because more mobile out, which are done with that the same. You can make it red, you can make it something else, you can also make it gradient. And once you're done with that, you basically go to the last step of publish and embed. The other thing that is important is that Datawrapper, because we're doing it online, has a tendency, if you're not on a good internet or if there is some problem, it might freeze. So if it freezes, you can go back, or if you realize, okay, some spelling is wrong. Let's say I accidentally realized that South Africa is over here, it's spelled right, but let's say South Africa is spelled wrong. So then I can actually go back to check and describe. I can just double click on it and I can just type whatever I feel like. Or let's say this is not really South Africa, I just realized, and this is Kenya. I'm now changing the data set anyways. So you can just click, and once you've done it Kenya, you can come back and you can see that this is Kenya now instead of South Africa. So you can go back, change things, and again come in front as well. So that is another thing that is very important to remember. And then you can click on publish and embed, and you can just click on publish now, and then you get the URL and you're good to go. Yep, I'll just stop over here. Any other questions? Anything else that you want me to explain? Perfect. Thanks a lot for joining in. I don't know, Mahmood, are you there? Or anybody from the host, are they there? Otherwise, we'll just end this training over here.
Yes, please, we are here. Thank you very much for today's presentation.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
So please,
Thank you,
if
Esha.
anyone has any
Yeah.
question, you can ask now, or if there is no question, we'll be proceeding to our presentation, the group presentations. So Mr. Rajit, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Rajit. That was a very wonderful presentation. It's very educative and very interesting. Thank you so very much for coming on board.